Chapter 27. Rats in the Walls. Aemond. Dirty, dusty and cramped, it was an uncomfortably tight fit to get through the awkwardly shaped tunnel. They crawled in a straight line before turning left where the passage narrowed in, forcing them to lay flat to squeeze through. Aemond's hair caught on sharp edges, his hands, knees, elbows and clothes becoming stained and torn, before the tunnel suddenly turned into a shaft heading upwards instead, only accessible by climbing on a portion of open-aired studwork of a wall. This is horrid. We can't turn around, Ariel. Do you wish to? No? Then let's climb the wall and see where it goes. After reaching the top of the shaft, the tunnel once again returned to crawling height, though with a bit more comfortable width. You caught shadows of small rodents hurrying away, but some creatures held their ground, such as the spiders, and the cobwebs got stuck in his hair. The castle was bristling with people, so voices carried from the walls at their sides, and sometimes above or below too. The brief snippets Aemond heard varied, from the tediously dreary to the amusing to the embarrassing. Just returned from the sept where I prayed the princess and the baby safe and above.
Bug me with a spear, you'll never get that up the stairs, boy. You think your bleeding ruby is Hagrid or something? Didn't know before he got killed in the stepstones his pretty wife joined the whorehouse when winter started, long before she was widowed.
You useless fubdoodle!
It wasn't my fault! All I did was lift the blasted thing out of the soak. Shouldn't have torn. I think it was already there.
Just keep suing and pray that the Seven Lady Joanna won't catch the tear, or you'll be indebted till your grandchildren are grey, missy. Nearly fell off the railing. I said you can't fly like the witch lad. Dragons are one thing, but such sorcery is not natural. It's not normal shit green, is it? I'll add your father to my prayers.
Girl or boy, at least the spawn won't be a strong bastard. Ah, but since Sir Harwin's gone to dust, she might have seduced the little brother for old time's sake. Heh, Laris, even that whore wouldn't let the clubfoot fuck her. Regardless, anyone with eyes can see the lick fiddle would rather sire bastards than the queen.
Oh, Nedard. Carrie. I bet Redford's passed out in the barracks again. He was supposed to relieve my station ages ago. And red the grass beneath his feet, and red his banners bright, and the red glow of the setting sun that bathed him in its light. Come on, the great lord called, my sword is hungry still, and with a cry of savage rage, they swarmed across the rill. Why did you stop? Aemond whispered under his breath, peering over his shoulders because Ariel's light had stopped following him. He's got a nice voice, she mouthed back, head cocked to the side, listening to the singing drifting through the floorboards. Which is why we appointed him as court minstrel, Aemond hissed. Let's keep moving. Though rough to use in practice, it was definitely the most secret passage Aemond had come across yet. Eventually they reached the tunnel's end, and after some examinations realized there was another cleverly hidden board that could be moved aside, which brought them out onto a landing on the roof above one of the lower buildings. The cold was unpleasant, but by then there was no question about going back. See the footsteps? Aemond pointed to the indents in the snow. Though still visible, they looked old, but it hadn't snowed in days. Small feet, Ariel remarked. Likely a child. Being smaller would have made it easier to get through such a passage. That was uncomfortable. I think our choice of attires were the biggest obstacle in there. This gown was not made for crawling. Ariel mused, examining her dark-stained hands, dirty gown and messy hairdo. She was no longer the vision of exotic ethereal magic, but the mystery and exploration left her face bright and her smiles quick. Aemond still thought her pretty. It took Ariel no more than another funny words and some arm gestures to clean them up. The Aemond knew perfectly well that if left to the maids, his doublet would likely have been beyond repair. Give me your left hand. At her request, Aemond held it out, confused but curious of her intentions. Her soft, warm hands closed around the back of his and turned it palm up, before pointing her stick into the center, muttering, Aura Inflammari. Aemond startled as a pale flame lit up in the palm of his hand. A comfortable warmth sprang up his arm and washed across his face. Better not risk falling ill again, Harold told him. This is anchored to your palm. If you close your fist, it'll probably go out and I'll have to reapply it. She did the same for herself as Eamon tested the magic by moving his arm around. Yet the flame followed dutifully, up and down, side to side, and when he turned his hand upside down, the flame remained in place, fire gliding up the sides of his hand in a mesmerizing dance of pale blue fire. Unburned, Eamon muttered. It wasn't ferocious dragon fire, but holding a piece of raw magic in his hand made shivers run down his spine. It was an unequaled thrill, fascination, and... how could anyone call magic bizarre? It was beautiful. Now who's setting whom on fire? Eamon teased. Startled, Ariel laughed. They followed the footsteps around the side of the building, up the slope of a treacherously slippery deck to the top ridge of the roof. At the highest point of the building, the wind hit harder, and they were left balancing on treacherous footing until the ridge's end, where they had to jump to the next roof. If we fall from here, Eamon murmured, peering down to the ground below from the edge of the building. Though the footsteps proved somewhat smaller than both himself and Ariel had already managed it. It's not that far, Ariel insisted and leapt the distance. Eamon hurried to follow. This wasn't what I had in mind when I asked you to join me for the walk around the castle, he insisted, cheeks turning red from the cold the blue fire couldn't counter. Harold chuckled. Where would the other passage have led us then? It'd have ended up next to the library. Ah, and would you have let me inside? No, you know you need the king's permission for such. It's so unfair, she complained. I'm barred from the library at Dragonstone too. For once I'd have liked to choose my own reading material and not whatever the maester reads aloud during lessons. You're already exceptionally well read for a lady, in several tongues and alphabets. What else could possibly hold your interest there? Did she like poetry? History? As long as she remained at the Red Keep, Eamon could probably smuggle her a book for a short loan. How would I know? I'm not allowed in to see the selection, am I? But Luke once let me read a book with tales about the Storm Kings. Luke, he asked, his mind whirling ahead while watching his footing closely. Interested in history, is he? He is a good pupil, Harold said. You've been keeping tabs on his education? Eamon asked dryly. Learning his interest? What sort of man he'll become once his voice breaks? What does it matter? Isn't his inheritance all you're after? Eamon. No, he objected, turning fast to face her head on, and momentarily forgetting that walking along a ridge was dangerous as his left foot slipped on a patch of ice. Eamon tensed up, reflexively counterbalancing as Harold grabbed after his elbow. It lasted a split second, and he hadn't actually needed Harold's assistance here, though it was nice to see she still cared. Driftmark is one of the grandest seats in Westeros, but you're hardly the only one coveting it, Eamon said. Both by other ladies seeking to marry Luke, and the numerous Valyrian true-born cousins who knew a bastard of House Strong was no more worthy of the title of Lord of the Tides than any of Aegon's spawn down in Flea Bottom. Caution crept back into Harold's expression, and seeing he wasn't about to fall anymore, she let go of his arm. I know. So you realize it's not coincidental Daemon brought his daughters to live at Dragonstone? I figured, Harold said dryly, folding her arms. And in truth, I hope it won't be offered. What? But you said... I said what I should want according to the terms you were arguing, not what I preferred personally. Which was never Luke, you know that. I told you that, Ariel said. Don't misinterpret my words here. I care for Luke, but that doesn't mean I'm trying to marry him. Rhaena wishes to be the Lady of Driftmark, and I want that for her too. She's my friend, and I don't want to get in her way too, though hopefully it's still a long ways off. Truly. A pressure Eamon hadn't been aware of was seeping away. Then, don't you see? Ariel nodded. You do? Because when you turn 7 and 10 and receive an offer from House Targaryen, it won't necessarily be... Eamon took a deep breath. You get one offer. One. And unless you want them to pick a 3-year-old for you... He trailed off. "You're saying it'll be you," Ariel finished for him. "I'm saying it should be me." "Why though?" she asked. "I have no lands, gold, armies, or holdfast. My only inheritance is a name which means next to nothing in Westeros, alongside my dragon, which your house has many more of." "You have magic," Aemond added, gesturing to their burning hands. "That is not something that can be measured in possessions." "I appreciate the honesty," she said dryly. "No, I don't mean..." "It's fine, Aemond, I know what this is," Ariel said, pointing between them. Aemond wasn't sure she did, though. "I just mean, besides the magic, when you start counting benefits, I can't give you anything you don't already have. And you're ambitious, Aemond. Do you even want this?" she asked carefully. "Did you assume I kept bringing the matter up because I enjoy being yelled at somehow?" Ariel's lips twitched upwards. "No, though I wonder if this is your parents speaking and not you, because I drive you up the wall most of the time." Aemond tried to ignore how they were currently standing atop a roof as he answered. "Only occasionally. We always argue. No, we don't." A gust of wind blew a few strands of hair into Ariel's eyes, while she tried not to smile at how he'd inadvertently proved her point. "We don't," Aemond insisted. "But for all this we got along well. With a few exceptions, they were days like today. How many other ladies would come exploring this way? Maybe Helena would have, but it'd taken 50 times longer, because she'd be hard-pressed to leave that tunnel crawling with spiders. We're well suited. I just happen to be the unfortunate one who's always ended up handling the worst of your eccentric foreign inclinations." That's one way to describe our different upbringings. "And unlike others, I have never dismissed you. You were the one demanding that as an ally of House Targaryen you deserve to be informed, and maybe you were. Though when I've done so, all I've received is your rage, every time I end up taking the heat for their actions." "I'm aware," Ariel said quietly. "Your sister gave me the same speech as you, though she was far kinder about it. She neither called me a cunt nor did she tear apart my roses." "That's the real reason you're opposed, is it not?" he gritted out. "Him. Stark. Kraken's betrothed. It's not..." Ariel seemed as stressed as Aemond felt. "It's not... It's not you, I just... Ariel's face was flushed red from more than cold. "This is so... It's... marriage talk! It's so much worse when you have to... advocate a match for yourself." He guessed what she was trying to say. "This is why we leave these matters to the head of house." Aemond had known this day was coming for years, and seen betrothal agreements struck cleanly between lords securing their children's future. But he wouldn't have that. When an offer came for Aemond's suit, and considering the situation at the Red Keep, it'd likely be shortly after Aegon's betrothal was secure, by either a slighted lioness or an insulted deer, then Aemond didn't trust his father to consider his preferences. Ariel might have the luxury of delaying until she was 7 and 10, but Aemond didn't. Yet having to discuss it with an undetonated fire lion of a witch instead of a level-headed lord, Aemond found his heart beating too hard, emotions too heightened, and discomforting nerves nesting in every word. "But doesn't it frustrate you too? Always doing your duty? House Targaryen wants what I possess, and I want..." She sighed. "Though you claim to be willing to, handle my foreign inclinations, you live in King's Landing. I initially came to Westeros to find a place where Norbert could be free, and we wouldn't be hunted or attacked. But in King's Landing she will be chained. I will be chained. If my future is to consist of a marriage of convenience, at the very least it needs to be convenient." Convenient? It's a phrase from home. Marriage of convenience. It's another way to describe the usual arranged marriages here. "An interesting term," Aemond said, brow arched. "Most marriages are formed by some level of convenience, though I'd rather use a term more akin to marriage of gain, or alliance, or stability instead." Ariel fidgeted with a lock of her hair. Convenient towards a goal? Maybe. His moment of lighter mood fell. You have designs to be lady of your own castle, then? No, I don't. Ariel gestured to the scenery of the Red Keep in winter surrounding them. Yet I can't be in King's Landing either, because Norbert is not someone who can just live anywhere. She requires lands to roam without harming people, and since I'm her rider, I go where she is. Except the issue of how I have no way to acquire that for her. Even if I had the gold, no one would sell lands to me because I am a woman. And if I get married, all my possessions will by law pass to my husband. So before I bind myself into a betrothal contract I can't break out of on threat of war, I have to be realistic. I have to be careful. I have to make sacrifices for my dragon's well-being. Because unlike you, I don't have a family to fall back on if I make a mistake. And Norbert is a duty I've already committed to. No dragon should be made to live this close to humans. It's dangerous to the people and cruel to the dragon. No one wins. Just look at how the dragons in Dragonstone are flourishing in comparison. That's because Rubius is there, Eamon said softly. Shouldn't he be more relieved to see Ariel understanding the situation properly? Yet if he was to name any feeling, it was mostly discomfort. Yes, but a big part of rearing them healthy is free hunting, on their premises and schedule, not the convenience of men. At the same time, you're very involved with the matters at course. Don't you think it's better for yourself to marry a lady who can support you properly? Who can be at King's Landing? Because I can't be that, not with Norbert. So how are we supposed to be well suited when it be so inconvenient on both parts? Eamon looked her up and down, from scarred forehead to hip. If you were to be my lady wife, I'd never claim it would be because you were convenient, he mused aloud, reminiscing over the last moon. You've already given me far too much trouble for that. For all the head pain she'd caused him, Eamon continued to favor her. She was lovely, thrilling, magical, and like trying to claim a dragon. She could create flames, speak to dragons, and make objects act like living beings. She'd made Eamon an unburnt, the only bride in Westeros whose blood was more valuable than her possessions. Ariel was the power. So marrying her? No, marrying Ariel certainly wouldn't be out of convenience. Eamon would readily bet her, even if it was highly inconvenient. Then you see my point. No, Eamon dismissed. You may not want to be involved in politics, but you are regardless if you are present for the proceedings or not, alone or alongside allies, and your stubbornness is likely to get you in trouble. I'm relieved you're acting with more care, but the logistics with Norbert can be solved. I'm not sure how at present, but you know I'd never want you to stop being a dragon rider. You are beautiful, and will make a good mother, and you made me an unburned. Ariel was becoming flustered, but her nervousness somehow made him less so. You are magic, and many may resent you for it, but I won't. I know you're kind. I know your first instinct is to protect. I'd be a good husband to you. Ariel flushed from the tips of her ears and struggled to look him in the eyes anymore. That's... When she tilted her head, the shimmering thread entwined into her braid reflected the low-angled rays of the sun. I'm sure you will? I'm flattered. But what I said before about Norbert's and Hagrid, you know I won't. Marry until you're 7 and 10. He finished for her, slightly pleased by her reaction. Ariel nodded. So we wouldn't marry for another year, he pointed out. It'd have been better to be betrothed, but I will respect your customs and your agreement with my house. Regardless, I'd like to court you in the meanwhile. Ariel blinked, startled by his statement. Are you not getting ahead of yourself? You might not be the one House Targaryen thinks most prudent for me to marry. I'm a ward of Princess Rhaenyra and you're not the king. If I'm not mistaken, you can't make this decision for yourself without his approval. That's true, he said. And things might be different in a year, which is why a betrothal would be better, as it affords some stability for all parties involved. Stability? It's not something to agree to lightly. Once you're in, just about nothing short of death can break it without one or both parties being publicly slighted. That may be, but for my sake it would make everything easier. For your sake? Emmett rolled his shoulders. Have you noticed how many great houses are wandering the halls of the Red Keep of late, Hariel? Aegon will be betrothed soon, and in the process slight the houses that are passed over. You think I wish to be the placeholder used to soothe their hurt egos in Aegon's stead? A second son for their second pick? Betrothed to some stranger? You wouldn't want that, would you? She frowned. Even if you'd go through with it. I would do it, Aemond insisted. Because it is my duty as a prince to keep the realm stable and because it will aid my house. But no, I don't want it. If I could only give reasons as to why I'm rejecting offers, very advantageous offers, that would be different. But as is, I'm stuck. So yes, I want to court you, because it'd make the rest back the hell off. That's a stressful situation, Ariel said. The flush lessened with a hint of sympathy. For your sake, I'm sorry I can't give you a betrothal, but I've explained why I will wait. Though a courtship it's quite different. Maybe... Ariel bit her bottom lip, brushed a few strands of loose hair behind her ear before she hardened up. If you speak to me the way you did back in the north, or if you ruin any more of my things, I won't. What about the next time we argue? I haven't pushed you into any fires after you made me stop, have I? Aemond lifted the hand with blue fire licking up his fingers. I took Ruby's aside during the trial. I haven't spoken a word of your drifting loyalties towards House Stark. I had a miserable week in the north. Sick, cold, stressed, and made to watch Stark play you like a fiddle trying to gain your dragon through your kindness and easy affections. I regret hurting you. But even if you didn't agree with my solution, my intentions were always to aid you. Will you hold that against me forever? It went back years too. Aemond had been mindful to not bring up the importance of keeping their Valyrian blood pure after a reaction on Driftmark II, going so far as bringing Hariel and Ruby's account of the risk of excess incest to the king and small council. It was his work that broke Helena and Aegon's betrothal, or else they'd be long married, likely with child. And now both were happier because of it. So Aemond wouldn't call Hariel names nor ruin her possessions, because he learned from his miscalculations. He hated weakness, especially if they were within himself. No, but do you realize how confusing you've behaved, especially of late? Can you blame me for being uncertain? She wondered, her green eyes searching his. So though I will not be betrothed before I'm of age, I can agree to a courtship, Aemond. You will? Yes, Ariel said. Courtship is the nearest to something we had at home too. Dating. Aemond didn't know the last word spoken in her native tongue, and was too distracted by the tumblings happening in his stomach to request clarification. It can help with your situation, will it not? How so? Aemond asked, restless with energy and fingers itching. He nearly clasped his hands together behind his back before recalling one hand was still on fire. But she said yes. A surge ran through his blood. A similar sensation to when he soared along the clouds before Vimmerfor pointed his snout downwards, plummeting towards the earth. Ears rushing and weightless, while Aemond's chief responsibility was to hold on and not fall off at the good part. As you said, it gives you a valid reason to turn down any offers you'd rather avoid, but there's some advantageous matches around of late. Have you considered them, or have you been too caught up in our argument to do so? Because the way I see it, if you were truthful in your claims, if we married, you would be the one who'd have to move, Aemond. I don't know where, but as it stands, the obvious answer would be Dragonstone. That brought Aemond up short. Dragonstone? But... oh. His soaring triumph lasted less than a minute before it was already deflating, his head filled with a ringing no. Her smile was too knowing, as she could tell the thoughts he kept between his teeth. Consider it. In the meanwhile, can we keep going? The fire can only do so much and I'd rather get inside. Of course, he said absently, torn between lingering giddiness and imagining the unpleasant scenario of being made to suffer daily life alongside Jace and Luke again. This time alone, outnumbered. He didn't want it, not to mention his mother would never allow it. Eamon turned back around with more care, leading them down the roof to its end where a ladder climbed up to the side of the next building. Situated within the knock of a corner in the castle wall, the ladder was near invisible from the ground and windows. The blue fire went out as Eamon grasped hold of the ladder step, and after they'd scaled the ladder several stories to another landing, the cold left his fingers feeling like knives were cutting into them. "This route is more treacherous than I expected," Eamon muttered while making sure Hariel got up safely, breaking the thoughtful silence. "Maybe we're walking the wrong way." "What do you mean?" "Maybe it's a secret route from the upper levels to get out closer to the ground floor." Eamon considered it. "It might be an emergency route in case enemies manage to penetrate the castle walls. Probably one of the many secret routes Maegor took with him to the grave. A bit redundant when secret emergency ways if the people who lives in the castle don't know of them." "That makes it more entertaining to rediscover them, though." Eamon smirked as they reached another boarded entrance, leading to a second secret passage. "Could they do this again? Did this exploration count as part of courtship?" That was not quite what he had in mind, though it did beat taking a stroll around the garden. Eager for warmth, they hurried into a passage so narrow they had to walk sideways. Eamon slightly stooped, but at least they weren't forced to crawl again. "Keep your voice down. I'm not sure what's on the other side of the wall." Eamon pointed to the surface they were nearly nose to nose with. "But this is not a place we want to get caught." "Sneaking through dark passages without a chaperone?" "No, we wouldn't want rumors to spread," Ariel whispered. Eamon shuffled onwards while listening intently for sounds. For a while all he heard were the soft padding of the floorboards under their feet and breathing, but then voices came back. Not as frequent as in the busier parts of the east wing, yet Eamon heard footsteps of someone walking by and some distant murmurs, and then... "What of Lionel?" A voice Eamon would recognize in his sleep reached his ears. It was his grandfather, Otto. "Elena would be Lady of the High Tower." Eamon stopped in his tracks. "What?" "A good station, though we're both aware how challenging it would be to push Lionel Hightower's suit for a princess in the eyes of the king, Lord Hand." Laris the clubfoot spoke quietly, making it hard to hear anything despite how Eamon strained his ears. "He's both younger than Jicadis and not a prince." "Neither should the bastard be one," his grandfather replied, making Eamon to wrestle for control of his expression. Surely his grandfather was talking of Rhaenyra's bastards, but why was he bringing that up in context with Elena? And... Hariel had pressed her ear against the wall, expression like stone while his grandfather kept speaking. "Oh no, not now. I have enough on my plate with Aegon's bride as is. The ladies of House Baratheon and Lannisters are at each other's throat, while Aemond is failing his courtship. I had not foreseen him to be this hopeless. Maybe Daeron was the better option all along if it's pushed her to do this. Whose side is she on?" "She's a foreigner with queer magic and licentious customs." He glanced sharply at Hariel, since even without names it was obvious who Laris had referred to, but she hadn't even blinked at the insult. Aemond couldn't say the same. Laris had the audacity to call Hariel licentious, and that his grandfather just slandered him as hopeless at courtship. "Licentious? What have you heard?" "The questioner's stationed this way, to make demands of the king himself. As I've counseled you before, the witch would be better off far removed from the Red Keep. I could see it done." "What's gotten into you? What of Rubius Hagrid? Norbert?" "No, Lady Hale's better off where we can see her and she can do some good for the realm. The girl is not stupid, but she's been fed Rhaenyra's deceit for too long. After that, such suggestions could be urged for a good option. You don't understand how that girl can twist even the most proper young maidens' minds, but once Lady Hariel is married, then her loyalty will be to blood. If she is half as protective of a child as she is Rubius, it won't be an issue." "How so?" "I've spent enough time with Rubius to be confident. Except his dragon duties, once given a chance, Ariel is his favorite topic of conversation. The way he speaks, one could mistake her for his daughter. Laris made a low humming sound, neither agreeing or disagreeing with Aemon's grandfather. If so, may I suggest that perchance the most effective option is not to push Helena away from Jacaerys, but Jacaerys in a more prudent direction. Prince Daemon finds Princess Rhaenyra's firstborn perfectly befitting of his own firstborn. Let it play out. I could make sure the rogue man overhears a rumor of Jacaerys and Helena. If he's in the right temperament, there might even be a chance he'd rush his daughter to the sept with his grandnephew before dawn is upon us. And what of the Velaryons? Even the ones who realize the truth of Jacaerys' birth may still support Baela as queen. They're loyal to Lord Corlys and Sir Laenor the Unburned before any daughter of the late Lady Lena. And Sir Laenor still refuses to admit the boys aren't his. Even a true-born daughter didn't change his tune. Have you not been informed? Laris asked, curious. As I made my way here, I was told Rhaenyra has delivered 2 babes who already take after their father, Viserys and Aemma Velaryon. Aemon scowled. So Rhaenyra had a boy after all, and another girl. Twins, who look like Sir Laenor, both made it, all 3. As I understand, they're small and the princess is bedridden. Aemma came first, Viserys soon after. Laris said, though consider this, Lord Hand. Before, Sir Laenor won nothing for either himself or his daughter by going against his wife. But a proud father's heart might change when holding their son. I've seen the change happen many times before. What parents do for the love of their children, and not mere affection for someone else's. It can get so messy. I've personally found it more practical to be without. If Rhaenyra has delivered a true-born son, and if she acts wisely, she could use this to strengthen her claimant. Unlikely, Laris said softly. She's a mother who loves all her children equally. Only time will tell if the same can be said for Sir Laenor, though. Aye, but Viserys Velaryon is her son too. Excuse me, Laris. If Rhaenyra has delivered, I have matters to attend to. Of course, Lord Hand. If I can be of any assistance in regards to Princess Helena, do let me know. I will. They walked the last stretch in silence, while Aemon's head shifted through the conversation overheard. From his new niece and nephew, to Helena, to what he'd said about Ariel. It hadn't made sense. What had he missed here? They refrained from speaking until they finally reached the exit. Removing the board, they had to squeeze through a narrow opening, so tight his doublet tore, and then pushed away a draping curtain before finding himself in a familiar room. Ariel came out behind him, struggling with her skirts that had gotten stuck again. Where are we? Ariel whispered. The inner chamber connected to the council room. Once Ariel got the second layer of dust and smudges of them, and Aemon stuck his head through the door to confirm it was unused, he let her look. I recognized your grandfather's voice. Ariel walked up to the center window behind the king's seat, peering out onto the sprawling view, her dark silhouette outlined sharply against the bright sun setting on the horizon outside. But the other, Laris, who was that? Laris Strong, Aemon said. A Lord Confessor and Master of Whisperers? With the painted leg? You're sure that was him? And the Lord of Harrenhal, aye, that was him. What did they mean? What did you do? He demanded. Did you say something to my father? How the hell did Lord Strong know what I spoke with the king about? She hissed, green eyes narrowed and tense. When does the Kingsguard change shift? Now, it's sunset. He pointed to the low position of the sun, framed by rippling clouds of red and orange. Which means the Lord Commander should still be with the king, or only recently left? Yes, but what does... Do you realize people are spying on your father then? There were only myself, the king and the Lord Commander in the Solar during the discussion. But somehow they already know what was said. When I left, the king was heading to his chamber to rest, so the only way they could already know is either by Sir Harold breaking his Kingsguard vows, or there's a secret passage directly into the king's bedchamber. Aemond had not put that together. Sir Harold was an honourable knight. He'd never been a gossip, or he'd never have risen to Lord Commander. Yet why would there be a passage into the King's Solar? That was within Maegor's Holdfast, the castle within the castle, and the only part of the Red Keep which didn't have any secret passages. Maegor had been paranoid, and according to historical accounts, wanted no rats in his own walls. Obviously, they disagreed with my opinion, as it sounds like they're rushing to betroth Helena away before... Before what? Aemond asked, mind snapping into focus. I told the king the truth, that his family is divided. Harold turned slowly back to look at him, hands twirling her stick. I told the king it would behoove his family to act sooner than later. I told the king I thought a good solution might be a marriage between Jacaerys and Helena. Her easy admission of her betrayal hit with more sting than the hardest of his mother's slaps. You... No, have you lost your mind? He exclaimed, storming up alongside the council table, a hand grasping the top of the crest rail of his grandfather's seat. No wonder they'd been considering Lionel Hightower for Helena then. Helena would be better off as the future lady of the Hightower than bastard-bound. That will never come to be! I thought you were her friend! She's been nothing but kind to you, and this is how you repay her affections! Just stop it! Ariel hissed. I did it precisely because Helena is my friend. I did nothing you wouldn't have done, but you've already tried to do to me. I was attempting to look out for the stability of House Targaryen, seeing as I'm bound to it too. She headed around the king's seat to the opposite side of the table, stopping by the Master of Law's chair. What aggrieves you, Aemond? I thought you favored Helena, so why do you not wish for your sister to be queen? She asked dangerously. Or may it be you wish for Aegon to be your king? Rhaenyra is heir, Aemond said tightly. But Helena's my sister! How could you counsel something so... If Helena is upset by this, which I doubt, I will regret it and beg her forgiveness for overstepping, Harold said honestly. It was only my opinion, and I chose to share it with His Grace, but it's not within my power to make any final decisions. What possessed you? It's not your place to counsel the king. What did you say? How did you say it? Did he punish you? A new suspicion came over him. Aemond might have been the one to lead her into a secret passage, but she was the one who suggested the detour. Could she be on house arrest? Or told to leave? Ariel pulled the chair back to sit down. No, he wasn't pleased that being told to leave was my only punishment for speaking out of turn. Aemond couldn't decipher what that meant. Had his father welcomed Ariel's proposal? Or had he simply not cared enough to take offense at a foreign woman's attempt at coercing matters of state and inheritance? His mother would never allow it. Helena didn't deserve to be shamed in such a way. How could Ariel... But of course she would. She didn't believe him about the bastardy. She'd never met Harwin Strong, never seen how alike they were. She'd only been in the company of Rhaenyra after she began upholding her marriage vows, proven by her newborn twins, born in the image of their father. And Ariel had just sat down at the table of the small council. By the seven, she was brazen. That's the seat of the Master of Laws, Ariel. Her eyes flickered across the dimly lit room. There's no one here. I can't sit in Lord Wild's empty chair. This isn't the Iron Throne. Aemond sighed, pushed back his own chair and sank into the seat of the hand. This is where the most influential men of the kingdom hold councils. Your grandfather, Larys Strong, Lyman Beesbury. Ariel's gaze drifted over to the row of chairs to the last one occupied by Sir Tywin Lannister as the Master of Ships. It is, Aemond confirmed, feeling drained as he leaned back in his seat. If this was how their courtship started, it'd be an exhausting and tiring affair, a far cry from the poems and songs. How did Aegon make this look so effortless? He was useless in so many things, but Aemond had never seen a lady give his brother this amount of trouble. Was it because she was foreign? Or was it something else? Was it simply Ariel? Taxes, maintenance, naval operations, expenses, trade. This is where he handled the day-to-day governance of the kingdom. though it's only the king who can make anything into law, while the rest are men appointed by the king to counsel him wisely. It's a great honor. Have Hagrid and I been discussed here? Yes, he said frankly. Especially of late. You've rapidly turned into a continental security risk. I believe there's been an additional council meeting each day since we returned from the north. Then, when your grandfather is done here, he heads off and invites Hagrid for tea. Hagrid told me the Hand has been friendly and curious about his work, though he never was before. My grandfather is trying to get to know him. For those whose lives don't revolve around dragons or magic, Ruby is not an easy person to understand. Why the sudden interest? Because Rubius is the rider of the world's strongest dragon. My grandfather is hardly the only one who's taken an interest. Or did Rubius not meet with Damon yesterday? Or turn down an invitation from Boris Baratheon, since it clashed with your supper with Rhaenyra and Sir Laenor? Aemond refrained from delving into the rumors he'd heard of Lord Boris's plans. It was only court gossip about how the Baratheons might offer Rubius a daughter in marriage. His grandfather was already sorting it out. And even if Boris still tried to be underhanded, Rubius would likely take offense to being offered a girl 60 years his younger. As Hand, it's my grandfather's duty to the king and the realm to make sure Rubius upholds his word and Vhagar is never used against us. He can't do that without getting to know Rubius, so he's invited to tea. Rubius should expect this to keep happening for a long while to come, probably the remainder of his life. So it's got nothing to do with me? Honestly, I wouldn't have asked if I didn't want your honesty, as unpleasant as that's been at times. Then yes, it concerns you too, but did you expect differently? You two can't be discussed separately. Where one goes, the other follows. Aemond admitted. I am not present for these talks, be it my grandfather's tea invitations nor the small council meetings. But one doesn't have to be the Grand Maester to riddle out what they're discussing whenever you two come up. Now you know how to listen in, though, Hale said, nodding towards the secret entrance. Did she just insinuate he should be eavesdropping on a small council? That'd be undignified and underhanded, Lady Hariel. It would be. I'm a prince. I'm aware. It's a punishable offense. For you too? It's beneath me. Using pre-made passages in your own home is beneath you, Ariel asked, and despite everything she almost sounded bemused. Yet sneaking out repeatedly to steal highly dangerous dragons is not. Aemond shook his head. It was my birthright to claim a dragon, the only one I was born with. Only birthright? You're a prince! Aye, but I can't change the order of my birth and remain but a second son. I'm heir to nothing but my name, and unlike a firstborn who lives in gluttonous comforts of their future surety, I've stood to gain nothing I don't claim for myself. My lot in life has always been to earn what I desire. Frankly, I always got the impression that's something you'd respect. It is. Hale smiled and pocketed her magic stick. Well, that reminds me. Did I ever tell you what Vermifor's name for you is? His name for me? In their own speech, they sometimes use titles which describe individuals. It's how Vhagar came to call Hagrid the Singer, after he tried singing a lullaby she hated, whilst Norbert refers to me as Sister. That is because I raised her. Vermifor didn't know your name was Aemond, so he used another title. I believe it's the same he's used both times. Both times? Vermifor had called King Jaehaerys the same as he did Aemond? Hariel's smile was too mischievous for it to be anything flattering. Yet Vermifor was his dragon. Their bond was strong. How bad could it be? What is it? Dancing green eyes looked at him through dark lashes. His pet.